The silence in the lecture hall was absolute. Professor Mitchell's hand trembled as she held the paper, reading the solution for the third time. 12 tenured mathematicians stood frozen, staring at the 12-year-old boy in the worn sneakers standing calmly at the front of the room. One professor whispered something that barely broke the silence. That's impossible. But it wasn't impossible, it had just happened. And the journey to this moment, the moment that would change everything, began 3 months earlier with a cruel joke in a 7th-grade classroom. Marcus Williams was 12 years old, though most people thought he looked younger. Small for his age, with glasses held together at the bridge with medical tape and sneakers that had seen better days, he didn't look like someone who would change the world. But then again, most people who change the world don't look the part at first. Every morning, Marcus woke up at 5:30 a.m. in the small 2-bedroom apartment he shared with his grandmother, Rosa, and his younger sister, Keisha. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building in southeast Washington, D.C., where the elevator had been broken for 6 months, and the hallway always smelled like a combination of Mrs. Chen's cooking and the mildew that bloomed behind the walls every winter. Marcus's morning routine never varied. He'd wake up, careful not to disturb Keisha, who slept on the other side of the room they shared, divided by a curtain his grandmother had sewn from old bedsheets. He'd brush his teeth, splash water on his face, and then spend exactly 30 minutes at the small desk in the corner, the desk that had been his mother's before the accident 3 years ago. Those 30 minutes were sacred. That's when Marcus did math, not homework. He'd finished his homework the night before. It never took more than 10 minutes. During those early morning hours, Marcus worked on real problems he found in library books, problems he discovered online during his precious computer time at school. Problems that made his mind light up like the old pinball machine at the corner store. His grandmother would shuffle out around 6, her joints stiff from years of cleaning office buildings at night. She'd find Marcus hunched over a notebook, pencil scratching away, completely absorbed. "Baby, you gonna go blind doing that in this light?" she'd say, the same thing every morning. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus would reply, the same response every morning, already packing up his materials. Rosa Williams didn't understand the math her grandson did. She dropped out of school in 10th grade to help her own mother, but she understood devotion. She understood a gift when she saw one, even if she didn't understand the gift itself. "Your mama would be proud," she'd tell him sometimes, squeezing his shoulder as she passed to start breakfast. Marcus would just nod, throat tight. His mother had been a nurse, smart, caring, killed by a driver who ran a red light and never spent a day in jail. That's what justice looked like in their world usually. But that was about to change. At school, Marcus was quiet, not shy, just careful. He'd learned early that being smart came with complications. Some kids thought he was showing off. Some teachers got defensive when he asked questions that pushed beyond the curriculum. So he'd learned to stay small, stay quiet, stay safe. He had 2 real friends, Jamie, who loved basketball and shared his lunch when Marcus forgot his, and Destiny, who was the only person who could beat him at chess during free period. They ate lunch together at the corner table, talking about anything except what made them different from the other kids. Marcus never talked about the math. Never mentioned that he was working through calculus textbooks he'd found at a library sale for $2 each. Never told anyone that he spent his Saturdays watching MIT OpenCourseWare lectures on the computers at the public library, headphones on. Notebook filling with equations that would have baffled most high school seniors. He just wanted to be normal, to get through the day, to go home and spend those precious hours when the world was quiet and the numbers made sense. But normal was about to become impossible. Jefferson Middle School sat in a neighborhood where dreams came to negotiate with reality. The building itself was old, built in the 1960s with that optimistic brutalist architecture that aged poorly. Paint peeled in the stairwells. The gym floor had a permanent warp on the east side. The library had more empty shelves than full ones after the budget cuts, but the teachers, most of them, tried. Mrs. Patterson, the librarian, kept the doors open late twice a week for kids who needed a quiet place. Mr. Rodriguez, who taught art, paid for supplies out of his own pocket. Ms. Jackson, the school counselor, had snacks in her drawer for kids who came to school hungry. Then there was Mr. Chen, who taught 7th grade math. Mr. Chen had been teaching for 15 years. He was competent, got through the curriculum, prepared students adequately for the standardized tests, maintained decent classroom control. He wasn't the worst teacher at Jefferson. He wasn't the best either. He was somewhere in the middle, coasting on autopilot, counting down the years until retirement. His classroom was on the 2nd floor, room 214. Rows of desks in strict formation. A smart board that he mostly used as a regular whiteboard because he'd never quite figured out all the features. Posters about famous mathematicians, all white, all male, all long dead, yellowing on the walls. The class itself was tracked. This was the regular level 7th grade math, not the honors class, not the remedial class. 23 students who ranged from genuinely struggling to quietly brilliant, all treated as if they were exactly the same. Marcus sat in the 3rd row, 4th seat back. Close enough to see the board, far enough back to avoid constant attention. He'd perfected the art of looking engaged while his mind wandered through much more interesting mathematical landscapes. His classmates were typical 7th graders. There was Tyler, the class clown who could make anyone laugh. Jessica, who was already worried about high school social hierarchies. Deshawn, who was better at math than he let on because being smart wasn't cool. Maria, who helped her parents run their restaurant and sometimes fell asleep in afternoon classes. They were good kids. Normal kids, kids who would witness something extraordinary and have to decide what kind of people they wanted to be. The date was September 15th, a Tuesday. The kind of unremarkable day that becomes remarkable only in retrospect. The morning announcements had droned on about an upcoming bake sale. Someone's lunch had been stolen from a locker. A fight had broken out near the gym but was quickly broken up. Just another day at Jefferson Middle School. Just another day until it wasn't. The lesson that day was on the order of operations. PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, 7th grade material that Marcus had mastered in 4th grade. Mr. Chen was going through example problems on the board, his voice settling into that drone that comes from saying the same thing to different groups of students for 15 years. Marcus was only half listening, his real attention on the notebook in his lap where he was working through a problem about manifold topology he'd found in a college textbook. Marcus Williams, his head snapped up. Mr. Chen was looking at him with that expression teachers get when they know you're not paying attention. Yes, sir. Since you seem to find my lesson so boring, why don't you come up here and solve this problem? It was a simple PEMDAS problem. Marcus could solve it in his head. But there was something in Mr. Chen's tone, an edge that made several students shift uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus closed his notebook and walked to the front of the room. He took the marker, solved the problem in about 15 seconds, and turned to go back to his seat. Wait, Mr. Chen said. There was a strange smile on his face now. A few students in the front row exchanged glances. They knew that smile. It never meant anything good. Mr. Chen walked to his desk and pulled out a folder. He flipped through some papers, worksheets from various grade levels that he kept for different purposes. He pulled one out, looked at it, then pulled out another from a different section. You know what, Marcus? You finished that so quickly I think you need a real challenge. The way he said real challenge made Marcus's stomach tighten. Mr. Chen walked to the board and began copying a problem from the paper he'd selected. It took him almost 2 minutes to write it all out. It was a differential equation, calculus, probably college level. Marcus recognized it immediately as a second-order linear differential equation. The classroom had gone very quiet. There, Mr. Chen said, stepping back from the board with that same thin smile. Let's see the genius solve this one. A few kids laughed nervously. Jessica whispered something to Tyler. Deshawn was frowning, looking uncomfortable. Marcus stood there, looking at the board. His heart was pounding, but not from fear, from calculation, from the rapid assessment happening in his mind. He could solve it. He'd worked through problems like this just last week. But if he solved it, what would happen? Mr. Chen clearly meant this as a humiliation. Give the smart kid an impossible problem, watch him fail, teach him to pay attention in class. If Marcus failed, he'd be embarrassed, but everything would go back to normal. If he solved it, go ahead, Mr. Chen said. We're waiting. Marcus could feel 22 pairs of eyes on him. He could see Mr. Chen's expression. smug, certain, already savoring the moment when Marcus would have to admit defeat. What Marcus didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that everything that happened next was being determined by this single decision. Walk away, and his life stays small, safe, predictable. Step forward, and nothing would ever be the same. Pause. Marcus picked up the marker. Actually, Mr. Chen interrupted, his voice dripping with false concern, this might be too hard. This is college-level mathematics. You probably haven't even heard of differential equations. It's okay to admit when something's beyond you. I'll try, Marcus said quietly. Oh, please do try, mister. Chen said, crossing his arms. This should be entertaining. Marcus turned to the board. His hand was steady as he began to work. Pause. What nobody in that room knew, what mister Chen was about to discover in the most devastating way possible, was that Marcus wasn't just trying. He was solving it. The scratch of the marker on the whiteboard was the only sound in room 214. Marcus's hand moved steadily, methodically, writing out each step with the kind of careful precision that comes from genuine understanding, not memorization. First, he identified the type of differential equation. Then he found the characteristic equation. His handwriting was small but clear, each step following logically from the last. Mr. Chen's smile had started to falter around the 30-second mark. By the time Marcus was 2 minutes in, that smile had disappeared entirely. The teacher moved closer to the board, squinting at what Marcus was writing. What are you? He started to say, then stopped. Marcus didn't respond. He was in that place he went when the math took over, that quiet space in his mind where everything else fell away and only the logic remained. Derivative, integration, substitution. Each step revealing the next like a path appearing in fog. 3 minutes in, he was solving for the constants. 4 minutes in, he was writing the general solution. At 4 minutes and 32 seconds, Marcus stepped back from the board and set down the marker. The complete solution to a second-order linear differential equation, college sophomore level work, was laid out on the board in perfect, methodical detail. The silence in the classroom had changed. It was no longer the silence of expectation. It was the silence of shock. Tyler's mouth was literally hanging open. Jessica had stopped whispering. Deshaun was leaning forward in his seat, staring at the board like he was trying to decode a message from another world. Mr. Chen's face had gone through several colors. Red, white, red again. He stared at the board, then at Marcus, then back at the board. That's, he started, his voice cracked slightly. That's not possible. I can explain each step if you want, Marcus offered quietly. What happened next would set the tone for everything that followed, Mr. Chen could have responded with curiosity, with respect, with the professional grace of a teacher encountering unexpected brilliance. He could have recognized the moment for what it was, a revelation of genuine talent that deserved nurturing. He did none of those things. You copied this from somewhere, Mr. Chen said flatly. Marcus blinked. No, sir, I solved it. I don't believe you. There's no way a 7th grader especially. He stopped himself, but not quite soon enough. The word hung in the air, unspoken, but heard by everyone. Especially what? Especially from this school, especially from this neighborhood, especially black. The other students had heard it too. The classroom temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Sit down, Mr. Chen said, his voice tight. We'll discuss this after class. Marcus walked back to his seat. His hands were shaking now, but not from the math. From the sudden understanding that something had shifted. That normal was already gone, as Mr. Chen tried to resume the lesson, stumbling over his words, his authority shaken. Marcus sat quietly at his desk. He could feel the stares of his classmates. Some looked confused, some looked impressed. Some looked uncomfortable, like they'd witnessed something they didn't want to be part of. Jamie leaned over and whispered, Dude, how did you do that? Marcus just shook his head slightly. He didn't have an answer that would make sense. The bell rang 40 minutes later. Mr. Chen's voice cut through the sound of students packing up. Marcus Williams. Stay, the other students filed out, some glancing back at Marcus with expressions ranging from sympathy to curiosity. Destiny caught his eye and mouthed, Good luck, before disappearing into the hallway. When the room was empty except for the two of them, Mr. Chen closed the door. I need to know where you got that solution, he said. I solved it, Mr. Chen. I can solve it again if you want, or you can give me a different problem. The teacher's jaw tightened. Don't play games with me. Did one of the high school students give you the answer? Did you look it up online before class? No. Sir, then explain to me how a 12-year-old with mediocre grades in my class suddenly solves college-level calculus. My grades aren't mediocre, Marcus said quietly. I have a 98% in your class. That's not the point. The point is— Mr. Chen stopped, running his hand through his hair. Look, I don't know what you're trying to prove, but mathematical ability doesn't just appear out of nowhere. You can't solve what you haven't been taught. But I have been taught. I teach myself. I've been studying calculus for 2 years. Mr. Chen laughed, a short, harsh sound. You expect me to believe that you've been studying college mathematics on your own? A 12-year-old from? He gestured vaguely, encompassing everything, the school, the neighborhood, Marcus himself. From where? Marcus asked, something new in his voice. Something that sounded almost like challenge. From a background with no access to advanced resources, Mr. Chen finished, but they both knew that wasn't what he meant. The library has resources. The internet has resources. The library— Mr. Chen's voice dripped with skepticism. You're telling me you taught yourself differential equations from library books? Yes, sir, Mr. Chen walked to his desk and pulled out a piece of paper. He wrote something quickly, then held it out to Marcus. Solve this right now. In front of me, it was another differential equation, different from the first but similar in complexity. Marcus took the paper, walked to the board, and solved it. It took him 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Mr. Chen watched in silence. When Marcus finished, the teacher's expression had hardened into something that looked almost like resentment. Who's helping you? He demanded. No one. Your parents, are they mathematicians? My mom died 3 years ago. I never knew my dad. I live with my grandmother. She cleans office buildings. The words came out flat, factual. Marcus had learned not to expect sympathy for his circumstances. Mr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Whatever scheme you're running, whatever you're trying to accomplish with this performance. Performance? I wasn't born yesterday, Marcus. I've been teaching long enough to recognize when a student is trying to manipulate the system. Maybe you think if you can convince people you're some kind of prodigy, you'll get special treatment. Scholarships, attention. But mathematical talent doesn't work this way. Real mathematical ability is built on years of structured learning, proper instruction, rigorous foundation. You can't just skip steps. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something colder, something like understanding. He would not be believed. No matter what he did, no matter what he proved, the narrative had already been written. Smart black kid from a poor neighborhood claiming to be a math prodigy? Impossible. Must be cheating. Must be lying, must be something other than what it appeared to be. Can I go? Marcus asked quietly. You can go, but Marcus— Mr. Chen's voice stopped him at the door. I'm watching you. And I'm going to be paying very close attention to your work from now on. If you're getting help from somewhere, I'll find out. Marcus walked out of room 214 with his backpack slung over one shoulder and a weight on his chest that hadn't been there that morning. If only Mr. Chen had done one simple thing. If only he'd asked one question. How can I support you? But he didn't ask. And that decision, that choice to assume deception rather than genius, to see performance rather than talent, was a mistake that would haunt him for the rest of his career. Because what Mr. Chen didn't know, what he would soon discover in front of an audience that would seal his professional fate, was that Marcus Williams wasn't performing. He was barely getting started. That night, Marcus sat at his small desk while Keisha slept on the other side of the curtain. His grandmother was at work, cleaning the offices downtown. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of sirens in the distance and Mrs. Chen's television through the thin walls. He opened his calculus textbook, Real Analysis by Rudin, purchased for $3 at a library sale, and tried to focus on the problems. But his mind kept drifting back to Mr. Chen's face. The disbelief, the accusation, the absolute certainty that Marcus must be lying. His phone buzzed, a text from Jamie. Yo, that was crazy today. You really know that stuff. Marcus stared at the message. Even his friend was questioning it. He typed back, yeah. How, the question everyone wanted answered. How could a kid from his background, from his neighborhood, from his circumstances, possibly know advanced mathematics? The answer was both simple and complicated. Simple, he studied. He worked. He loved it, complicated, everything else. The assumptions people made, the boxes they wanted to put him in. The narrative that talent could only emerge from certain backgrounds, certain schools, certain skin colors. Marcus put his phone down and returned to his textbook. The math didn't care where he came from. The math didn't care what color his skin was or how much money his grandmother made or whether his sneakers had holes in them. The math was pure, logical. Fair if only the world worked the same way. The next day in math class, Mr. Chen's behavior changed. He started calling on Marcus for every problem, simple ones. PEMDAS questions a fifth grader could answer. Each time Marcus answered correctly, which was every time, Mr. Chen would nod with an expression that said, "I'm watching you." Other students noticed. Tyler whispered to Jessica, "Why's Chen being weird with Marcus?" Jessica just shrugged, but her eyes kept darting to Marcus with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. After class, Mr. Chen handed back a quiz they'd taken the previous week. Marcus had gotten a 100%. At the top of his paper, Mr. Chen had written in red ink, "See me after school." Marcus's stomach sank. He knew what was coming. At 3:15, he presented himself at room 214. Mr. Chen was at his desk, grading papers. "Close the door," the teacher said without looking up. Marcus closed the door. "This quiz," Mr. Chen said, holding up Marcus's paper. "Perfect score, completed in half the allotted time according to my records. Every answer not just correct, but solved using methods I haven't taught yet. Sir, the methods are just more efficient ways to—" "I didn't ask for an explanation. I'm telling you what I observed." Mr. Chen set down the paper. "I've been doing some research, Marcus. I called the elementary school you attended. Talk to your 5th and 6th grade teachers." Marcus's heart started pounding. This was escalating beyond what he'd expected. "Do you know what they told me? They said you were a good student. B's and A's, but nothing exceptional, no mention of any advanced mathematical ability, no gifted program, no special accommodations." "I didn't show them." "Exactly, you didn't show them. Because it wasn't there yet, because whatever this is, it's new, which brings me back to my original question, who's helping you?" "Nobody's helping me. Don't raise your voice to me, Mr. Chen's tone was ice. "I've been teaching for 15 years. I know what genuine mathematical talent looks like. I know how it develops. And this," he gestured at Marcus, "this doesn't fit the pattern." Marcus felt tears of frustration burning behind his eyes. He refused to let them fall. What pattern am I supposed to fit, Mr. Chen leaned back in his chair. "The pattern of legitimate mathematical development. Students who excel at higher mathematics have certain indicators. Advanced program participation. Consistent high performance from early ages. Usually, parental support with educational background in STEM fields. Access to enrichment programs. Your background shows none of these indicators. So because I'm poor I can't be good at math? That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Marcus, Mr. Chen's voice took on a tone of forced patience. "I'm trying to help you here. If you've gotten involved with something, an academic dishonesty ring, online homework services, whatever, it's better to come clean now. I can make this easier for you if you're honest." The really devastating thing, the thing that Marcus would remember for years afterward, was that Mr. Chen genuinely believed he was being helpful. He truly thought he was giving Marcus a chance to confess, to avoid worse consequences down the line. It never occurred to him that he might be wrong. "I haven't cheated," Marcus said quietly. "I've never cheated. Everything I've done has been my own work." "Then prove it right now. Solve this without any preparation, Mr. Chen turned to his computer, pulled up something, and wrote a problem on the board. It was a partial differential equation, even more advanced than what Marcus had solved before. Marcus walked to the board. His hands weren't shaking anymore. Something had settled in him, something cold and determined. He picked up the marker and began to work. 23 minutes later, he set down the marker. The complete solution was on the board. Mr. Chen had watched the entire time, his face unreadable. When Marcus finished, the teacher stood up and walked to the board. He examined the solution carefully, taking his time, checking each step. Finally, he turned to Marcus. "This is correct." "Yes, sir." "Which means either you've somehow actually taught yourself advanced mathematics or—" He paused. Or you have some kind of photographic memory and you've memorized solutions you've seen elsewhere. Marcus wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to demand what it would take to be believed. But he knew the answer. Nothing. Nothing he could do would be enough because Mr. Chen had already decided what was possible and what wasn't. "Can I go?" Marcus asked. "You can go, but Marcus." The teacher's voice stopped him again. "I'm escalating this to the administration. They need to be aware of the situation." What situation? A student claiming advanced abilities without proper documentation or institutional validation. It's a matter of academic integrity. Marcus left without responding. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall and tried to steady his breathing. Students streamed past, heading to after-school activities, to sports practice, to freedom. Destiny appeared beside him. "You okay?" "Yeah," Marcus lied. "I heard Chen's giving you a hard time." "It's fine." "Marcus," Destiny's voice was serious. "What you did yesterday, solving that problem, that was real, right?" Even her. Even his friend was questioning. "Yeah," he said, "it was real." "Then screw Chen, he's just scared because you made him look stupid." She punched his arm lightly. "Don't let him get in your head." But it was too late for that. Mr. Chen was already in his head, his words echoing, "This doesn't fit the pattern." What pattern? The pattern of what genius was supposed to look like. The pattern of who was allowed to be brilliant. Marcus didn't know it yet, but Mr. Chen's decision to escalate to the administration was the best mistake the teacher could have made. Because it was about to start a chain of events that would bring the truth to light in a way that nobody, especially not Mr. Chen, could ignore. But first, things were going to get worse. Much worse. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 3:30 p.m. in Principal Harrison's office. Marcus, his grandmother, Mr. Chen, and the principal. Marcus's grandmother had to take off work, unpaid hours she couldn't afford to lose, and she arrived at the school in her cleaning uniform because there wasn't time to go home and change. Rosa Williams was 63 years old, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and hands roughened from years of labor. She sat in Principal Harrison's office with her back straight and her purse clutched in her lap, and Marcus could feel the tension radiating from her body. Principal Harrison was a tired-looking woman in her 50s who'd been running Jefferson Middle School for 8 years. She'd seen a lot in that time. Too much, maybe. She had the expression of someone who'd learned to expect problems. Mr. Chen sat across from them, a folder of documentation in his lap. "Thank you all for coming," Principal Harrison began. "Mr. Chen has brought some concerns to my attention regarding Marcus's recent academic performance, and I thought it best we discuss them together." "What concerns?" Rosa's voice was sharp. "My grandson's doing well in school. I check his grades every week." "He is doing well," Principal Harrison agreed. "That's actually part of the concern. Mr. Chen, would you like to explain?" Mr. Chen opened his folder. "Over the past week, Marcus has demonstrated what appears to be advanced mathematical knowledge, specifically, the ability to solve college-level calculus problems. While this would normally be cause for celebration, there are some irregularities that concern me." "Irregularities?" Rosa's hand tightened on her purse. "Marcus's elementary school records show no indication of advanced mathematical ability. There's no documentation of any gifted program participation. His standardized test scores are good, but not exceptional. And yet, suddenly, he's able to solve differential equations that most high school students couldn't approach." "So you're saying my grandson's too smart?" Rosa's voice had an edge that Marcus rarely heard. "I'm saying the progression doesn't make sense. Mathematical ability of this level requires years of structured learning. It doesn't appear spontaneously." Principal Harrison leaned forward. "Marcus, Mr. Chen mentioned that you've been teaching yourself advanced mathematics. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said quietly. "And where have you been learning this material?" "Library books, online courses. MIT OpenCourseWare has free lectures." "MIT OpenCourseWare," Mr. Chen repeated, his tone skeptical. "You're saying you've been learning college mathematics from online videos?" "Yes, sir." "And nobody's been helping you? No tutors?" "No online services. We can't afford tutors," Rosa interjected, her voice tight. "I work 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. Whatever my grandson's learned, he learned on his own because he's brilliant and he works hard." Mrs. Williams, I understand this is frustrating, Principal Harrison said in a conciliatory tone. But you have to understand our position. When a student suddenly demonstrates abilities far beyond grade level, we have to verify that the work is legitimate. It's not about doubting Marcus personally, it's about academic integrity. Sounds like doubting to me, Rosa said flatly. Mr. Chen pulled out several papers from his folder. These are the problems Marcus has solved in my presence. I've had them reviewed by a colleague who teaches at the high school. According to her, these solutions are not only correct, but demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of mathematical concepts that aren't typically mastered until undergraduate study. So he's smart, Rosa said. Why is that a problem? It's not a problem if it's genuine, Mr. Chen replied. But without any documented history of this ability, without any institutional validation, we have to consider other explanations. Other explanations, Rosa repeated slowly. You mean you think he's cheating? We need to rule out all possibilities. Marcus sat quietly through this exchange, his eyes fixed on the floor. He felt small, invisible. Like they were talking about someone else, some problem to be solved rather than a person to be understood. Principal Harrison sighed. Here's what I suggest. We can arrange for Marcus to be tested by the school district's gifted and talented program. They have assessments specifically designed to evaluate mathematical ability. If Marcus performs as well as Mr. Chen suggests he can, then we'll have documentation of his abilities and can discuss appropriate academic placement. When? Rosa asked. The next testing session is in 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Marcus spoke for the first time since the conversation had started. 6 weeks while everyone thinks I'm a cheater. Nobody's calling you a cheater, Marcus, Principal Harrison said, but her tone was unconvincing. That's exactly what you're calling me, Marcus said, his voice rising. You're saying I couldn't possibly be this smart on my own, so I must be getting help from somewhere. You're saying that because my test scores aren't exceptional, and because I'm from here. He gestured vaguely, meaning the neighborhood, the school, everything. I can't really be good at math. Marcus, Rosa started, but he was standing up now, the words pouring out. I wake up at 5:30 every morning to study. I spend every Saturday at the library. I love math, I'm good at it, and none of that matters because you've already decided what I can and can't be. Young man, sit down, Mr. Chen said sharply. Why? So you can tell me again that I don't fit your pattern, that kids like me don't get to be mathematical prodigies. The room went silent. Rosa was staring at her grandson with wide eyes, seeing something she hadn't fully understood before. Principal Harrison looked uncomfortable, shifting papers on her desk. Mr. Chen's jaw was tight, his face flushed. That's not what anyone said, the principal finally managed. It's what everyone meant, Marcus said quietly. He sat back down, but something had changed. The quiet, careful Marcus who tried not to take up space was gone. In his place was someone who'd been pushed too far. Rosa put her hand on Marcus's shoulder. When she spoke, her voice was cold. We'll do your test in 6 weeks, but let me be clear about something. My grandson is not a cheater, he's not a liar. He's a brilliant boy who works harder than any child should have to work, because he knows the world is going to doubt him every step of the way. He knows people are going to assume the worst. He knows he'll have to prove himself over and over again while other kids get the benefit of the doubt. She stood up, gathering her purse. We're done here. Marcus, come on. Mrs. Williams, Principal Harrison started, but Rosa was already at the door. 6 weeks, she said without turning around. We'll be here. They walked out of the office together. In the hallway, Rosa stopped and pulled Marcus into a tight hug. She smelled like the industrial cleaner she used at work and the lavender lotion she kept in her purse. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. It's okay, Grandma. No, it's not okay, but we're going to prove them wrong. All of them? Marcus nodded against her shoulder, but he wasn't sure what they were going to prove. That he was smart. He already knew that he could solve advanced math. He'd already demonstrated that. What they really needed to prove was something that shouldn't need proving, that a black kid from Southeast DC could be just as brilliant as anyone else. And the truth was, Marcus wasn't sure that could be proven, not to people who'd already decided otherwise. What Marcus didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that the test in 6 weeks would never happen. Because something was about to occur that would force the truth into the open far sooner, in a far more dramatic fashion. But first, the situation at school was about to become unbearable. Word spread fast. By Friday morning, everyone at Jefferson Middle School knew that Marcus Williams was in trouble for something related to math. The details were murky, middle school rumors always were, but the general sense was that he'd been accused of cheating or lying or something. The reactions varied. Some students looked at Marcus with suspicion. He caught whispered conversations that stopped when he walked by. "You think he really did it?" "I don't know, but why else would they be investigating?" Some looked at him with pity. Poor Marcus, so desperate for attention that he'd pretended to be smart. So sad. Some, a smaller group, looked at him with something like respect. They'd seen him solve that problem on the board. They knew what they'd witnessed, even if the teachers didn't believe it. And some, like Tyler and Destiny and Jamie, stood by him with quiet loyalty. "This is bullshit," Destiny announced at lunch, slamming her tray down hard enough to make the other tables look over. "Chen's on a power trip because you made him look dumb." "Language," Jamie said automatically, but he was nodding in agreement. Marcus pushed his food around his tray. The cafeteria's attempt at pizza was even less appealing than usual. "It doesn't matter." "Yes, it does," Tyler said. "You're not a cheater. Everyone who knows you knows that." "But everyone doesn't know me," Marcus pointed out. "Most people just see—" He trailed off. "See what?" Destiny prompted. Marcus shrugged. How could he explain it? How could he articulate the weight of being seen as a statistic, a stereotype, a problem instead of a person? "They see what they want to see," he finally said. The conversation moved on to other topics. The upcoming basketball game, the ridiculous homework load from English class, the ongoing drama about who was dating whom. But Marcus remained quiet, retreating into his own thoughts. In math class that afternoon, Mr. Chen was coldly professional. He didn't call on Marcus, didn't make eye contact, treated him like he was invisible. Somehow that was worse than the accusatory attention had been. After class, as students filed out, Mr. Chen's voice stopped Marcus at the door. "Marcus, a word." Here we go again, Marcus thought. He turned back, resignation heavy in his chest. But Mr. Chen's expression was different this time. Not angry, not accusatory, something else. Something that looked almost like concern, which was somehow more disturbing. "I want you to understand something," the teacher said once they were alone. "I'm not doing this to hurt you." "I'm trying to protect you," Marcus blinked. "Protect me?" "Yes, because if you've gotten involved in something, buying homework, using AI services, whatever, it's going to catch up with you eventually. Better to address it now, while you're young, than to let it become a pattern that destroys your future." The really awful thing was that Mr. Chen seemed sincere. He genuinely believed he was helping. "I haven't gotten involved in anything," Marcus said tiredly. "How many times do I have to say it? Then you have nothing to worry about. The testing will prove your abilities are genuine, you'll be placed in appropriate classes, and this will all be behind us." "6 weeks," Marcus said. 6 weeks of everyone thinking I'm a liar. 6 weeks of you proving your dedication by continuing to work hard and show integrity," Mr. Chen corrected. "Use this time wisely, Marcus. Show me, show everyone, that you're serious about mathematics through consistent, grade-appropriate work. Stop trying to show off with problems you couldn't possibly understand and focus on mastering the fundamentals." Marcus stared at him. "You just told me the testing would prove my abilities, and now you're telling me I couldn't possibly understand advanced problems. Which is it?" Mr. Chen's expression hardened. "Don't be smart with me. Isn't that what you want, for me to be smart? I want you to be honest. I want you to stop this performance and engage with mathematics at your actual level." There it was again. Performance! As if everything Marcus was, everything he could do, was an act. A trick. "Akon, I'm done," Marcus said quietly. "Excuse me. I'm done trying to prove myself to you. I'll take your test in 6 weeks. I'll pass it. And then you can find some other reason not to believe me." He walked out before Mr. Chen could respond. In the hallway, Marcus leaned against the cold concrete wall and closed his eyes. He was so tired, tired of being doubted, tired of being questioned, tired of having to justify his existence, his intelligence, his worth. For the first time since this whole thing started, he seriously considered just giving up. Stop studying advanced math. Stop trying. Just be the regular seventh grader everyone expected him to be. Wouldn't that be easier? But even as he thought it, he knew he couldn't do it, because the math wasn't about proving anything to anyone. The math was for him. It was the thing that made sense when nothing else did. It was beauty and logic and truth, and he wasn't going to let anyone take that away from him. That weekend, something happened that would change everything. Marcus was at the library, his Saturday sanctuary, working his way through a particularly complex problem in topology. The library was quiet, just the way he liked it. A few elderly people reading newspapers, a couple of college students studying for exams, Mrs. Patterson, the librarian, organizing books at the far end. Marcus had his headphones on, listening to a lecture from Professor Gilbert Strang's linear algebra course, when someone tapped his shoulder. He looked up to see a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an MIT sweatshirt. She was holding a coffee and had a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Marcus pulled off his headphones. "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I couldn't help noticing what you're working on." She gestured to his notebook, where pages of mathematical notation were visible. Marcus automatically moved to cover his work. The instinct to hide had become second nature, but stopped himself. "It's topology," he said cautiously. "I can see that. I'm Dr. Sarah Martinez. I teach mathematics at Georgetown University. I'm just here doing some research, and I happened to walk past your table." She smiled. "I don't often see middle school students working on manifold topology on Saturday afternoons. I like math," Marcus said, unsure where this was going. "Clearly. Do you mind if I ask what you're working on specifically?" Marcus explained the problem, a question about homeomorphisms that he'd found in a textbook. "Doctor." Martinez listened carefully, asking occasional questions. Her eyes grew wider as Marcus talked, showing his work, explaining his approach. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the chair across from him. Marcus nodded and she sat down. "How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?" 12. "And where are you learning this material?" Here we go, Marcus thought, the suspicion, the disbelief. But when he looked at Dr. Martinez's face, he didn't see skepticism. He saw fascination, interest, the expression of someone who discovered something remarkable. "I teach myself," he said carefully. "Library books, online lectures, whatever I can find. No formal instruction in advanced mathematics. No, ma'am, my school doesn't offer anything beyond 7th grade algebra, Doctor." Martinez was quiet for a moment, studying him. Then she said, "Marcus, it is Marcus, right? I saw the name on your library card. I need to tell you something. What you're doing right now. This level of mathematical engagement at your age. It's exceptional, more than exceptional, it's extraordinary." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Someone believed him. An actual mathematician, someone who knew what they were talking about, believed him. "My teacher doesn't think so," he heard himself say. "He thinks I'm cheating." Dr. Martinez's expression darkened. "Tell me about that." And Marcus did. The whole story poured out, the problem on the board, Mr. Chen's accusations, the meeting with the principal, the 6-week wait for testing, the constant suspicion and doubt. Dr. Martinez listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This is unconscionable," she finally said. "Marcus, what's your last name?" "Williams. Marcus Williams." "I want to give you my card." She pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "My email is on the front. My cell phone is on the back. I want you to contact me if you need support or advocacy. What your teacher is doing, denying your abilities, making you prove something you've already demonstrated, it's not just wrong. It's discriminatory. He says he's following protocol, making sure it's real. Protocol would be arranging immediate testing, not making you wait 6 weeks while rumors spread. Protocol would be supporting a potentially gifted student, not accusing them of fraud. Dr. Martinez's voice was sharp. "I've seen this before, Marcus, too many times. Students from certain backgrounds, certain neighborhoods, certain..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Certain demographics get scrutinized in ways that other students don't. Their abilities get questioned instead of celebrated. Because people like me aren't supposed to be good at math," Marcus said quietly. "Because people have limited imaginations and unconscious biases that they refuse to examine." Dr. Martinez looked angry now. "But here's what I want you to know. You are good at math. Extraordinarily good. And that's not going away no matter what anyone says. She reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper. She wrote something complex, a series of equations that made Marcus's eyes light up despite everything. This is a problem I'm currently working on with my research team. It's related to differential geometry. I don't expect you to solve it. It's graduate-level work, and we've been stuck on it for weeks. But I'd be interested to see your approach to it. If you want to try, email me your work. No pressure, just curiosity. Marcus took the paper, staring at it. A real research problem from a real mathematician who believed he was capable of engaging with it. Thank you, he whispered. No, thank you. You've reminded me why I went into mathematics in the first place, the pure joy of discovery. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Dr. Martinez stood up to leave, then paused. Marcus, one more thing. In 2 weeks, Georgetown is hosting a mathematics competition for high school students. It's not normally open to middle schoolers, but I think you should participate. I can arrange it if you're interested. A competition, problems ranging from algebra to calculus to discrete mathematics, timed, proctored. The kind of objective demonstration that makes it very hard for anyone to claim you're not the real deal. She smiled. Think about it. Email me if you want to do it. After she left, Marcus sat at the library table for a long time, staring at the research problem she'd given him. His heart was pounding. His mind was already turning over possible approaches, seeing patterns, making connections. For the first time in 2 weeks, he felt something like hope. What Marcus didn't know was that Dr. Martinez had left the library deeply troubled. She knew what was happening to Marcus because she'd seen it happen to students throughout her career. Talented kids whose gifts were questioned, dismissed, or ignored because they didn't fit the expected profile. She also knew that sometimes the only way to break through institutional skepticism was with undeniable proof, public proof, the kind of proof that left no room for doubt. Marcus spent the next 3 days on Dr. Martinez's research problem. He worked on it during his sacred morning hours before school. He worked on it at lunch while Tyler and Jamie talked about basketball. He worked on it late into the night, long after his grandmother had gone to work and Keisha had fallen asleep. The problem was brutally difficult. Graduate-level differential geometry, concepts he'd only barely encountered before. But it was also exhilarating. Like climbing a mountain where each handhold revealed a new vista of mathematical landscape. On Tuesday evening at 11:47 p.m., Marcus saw it, the connection he'd been looking for. The insight that made everything click into place. His hand flew across the paper, writing faster than he'd ever written before. Steps flowing into steps, proofs building on proofs. The solution emerging like sculpture from marble. At 1:23 a.m., he set down his pencil and stared at what he'd written. 12 pages of dense mathematical reasoning. A solution to a problem that had stumped Dr. Martinez's graduate research team. He was 12 years old. Marcus picked up his phone with trembling hands and took photos of each page. Then he opened his email and began to type. Dr. Martinez, I hope this email finds you well. I've been working on the problem you gave me at the library. I think I might have found something. I'm not sure if it's right. I probably made mistakes since this is more advanced than what I usually work on. But I wanted to share my approach in case it helps. Thank you again for believing in me. It meant a lot. Sincerely, Marcus Williams. He attached the photos and hit send before he could second-guess himself. Then he climbed into bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. His mind kept running through the proof, checking steps, questioning conclusions. What if he was wrong? What if he'd made some fundamental error and embarrassed himself? At 7:15 a.m., his phone buzzed with an email notification. Dr. Martinez had replied. Marcus's hands shook as he opened the email. Marcus, I'm writing this at 7 a.m. because I've been up since 4 when I first saw your email. I have read your solution 3 times. I have checked it against our work. I have shared it with my research team. Marcus, this is correct. Not just correct, it's elegant. You've approached the problem from an angle we hadn't considered, and in doing so, you've solved something that has been blocking our research for 2 months. You are not just good at mathematics. You have the potential to be world-class. I need to see you in person. Can you come to Georgetown this Saturday? I want to introduce you to some colleagues and discuss the competition. I also want to discuss your school situation. I think it's time we addressed it more formally. Please bring your grandmother if possible. There are things we need to talk about regarding your future. Believe in yourself, Marcus. You are extraordinary. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Associate Professor of Mathematics, Georgetown University. Marcus read the email 4 times. Then he got up, walked to the bathroom, and threw up from sheer nervous energy. When he came back, Keisha was awake, peering at him over the curtain divider. "You okay?" she asked sleepily. "Yeah," Marcus said, then more truthfully, "I don't know. Everything was happening so fast. A week ago, he was just trying to stay invisible. Now a Georgetown professor was calling him extraordinary and wanted to meet with his grandmother about his future. He felt like he was standing on the edge of something huge. Something that could change everything, and he was terrified. At school that week, Mr. Chen's behavior shifted again. He'd heard, through the teacher's rumor mill, that Marcus had been seen at the library working on advanced mathematics with someone who looked like a college professor. A parent had mentioned it to another teacher who'd mentioned it to someone else, and now Mr. Chen was deeply unsettled. On Wednesday, he pulled Marcus aside after class. "I heard you've been getting outside help," he said without preamble. "I met a mathematician at the library," Marcus said carefully. "She gave me her card. A mathematician just happened to approach you at the library. She saw what I was working on and was interested." Mr. Chen's expression was difficult to read. "What's this person's name?" "Dr. Sarah Martinez. She teaches at Georgetown." The teacher's face paled slightly. Georgetown, a real university, a real professor, this was getting beyond his control. "You shouldn't be contacting college professors without school supervision," he said. "It's inappropriate. She contacted me, I was just studying. Nevertheless, I don't want you discussing your academic situation with outside parties. This is a school matter. She's helping me study mathematics. That's not a school matter, that's my own time." Mr. Chen's jaw tightened. "Marcus, I'm trying to help you understand something. When this all comes out, when it becomes clear that you've been getting help from a college professor, it's going to look like validation of my concerns. It's going to prove that your abilities aren't self-taught, that you've had outside instruction." Marcus stared at him. "I met her 5 days ago. I've been doing advanced math for 2 years. So you say, but you have no documentation of that. What you do have is evidence of recent contact with a mathematician who, let me guess, has been very encouraging and supportive. She believes in me. She believes what you've told her. She doesn't know your full academic history." Marcus felt something snap inside him. "What do you want from me? What would it take for you to believe me? I've solved every problem you've given me. I've explained my work. I want you to wait for the official testing," Mr. Chen interrupted. "I want you to stop this campaign to prove yourself through unofficial channels. I want you to demonstrate patience and trust the process. The process that assumes I'm a liar, the process that ensures fairness and academic integrity." They stared at each other, an impasse. An unbridgeable gap between two completely different understandings of what was happening. "Can I go?" Marcus finally asked. "You can go, but Marcus, be careful. This professor at Georgetown, she doesn't know you. She doesn't know this school. She's making judgments based on incomplete information. Don't let her fill your head with unrealistic expectations." Marcus left without responding. In the hallway, he pulled out his phone and looked at Dr. Martinez's email again. The words that had given him hope just days ago. "You are extraordinary." Was he, or was Mr. Chen right? Was he just a kid who'd gotten in over his head, whose abilities would evaporate under real scrutiny? No, he knew what he could do. He knew what he'd solved. He knew that his solution to Dr. Martinez's problem was real, was correct, was his. But knowing didn't stop the doubt from creeping in. Didn't stop the voice in his head that sounded suspiciously like Mr. Chen. "This doesn't fit the pattern. Students like you don't. Students like you." On Friday afternoon, Principal Harrison called Marcus to her office. His grandmother had been called too, pulled away from work again, losing more hours they couldn't afford. Rosa arrived still in her cleaning uniform, her expression thunderous. "This better be important." Principal Harrison looked uncomfortable. "I wanted to update you on the situation. We've learned that Marcus has been in contact with a professor from Georgetown University. And," Rosa's tone was sharp, "and we're concerned about the appropriateness of this contact. We don't know this person's intentions or..." Her intentions, Rosa's voice rose. Her intentions are to support my grandson because she recognizes his talent. Something this school has failed to do. Mrs. Williams, please understand, we have protocols for identifying gifted students. Having outside parties involved complicates. Complicates what? Complicates your narrative that Marcus must be cheating. Rosa stood up, her purse clutched in both hands. Let me tell you what's complicated. What's complicated is watching my grandson, who works harder than any child should have to work, get accused of lying because he's smart. What's complicated is explaining to him why the school that's supposed to support him is treating him like a criminal. Nobody's treating him like a criminal, Principal Harrison protested. Then what do you call this? Interrogations, meetings, accusations, telling him he can't talk to a mathematician who wants to help him. Rosa's voice cracked slightly. Do you know what this is doing to him? Do you care? Marcus sat silently, watching his grandmother defend him with a ferocity he'd never seen before. She was terrifying and magnificent. Principal Harrison sighed. Mrs. Williams, I understand your frustration, but we have to be careful. There have been cases of adults taking advantage of talented children, making promises they can't keep, exploiting. Exploiting? Dr. Martinez gave him a math problem and her business card. She's not asking for money, she's not making promises. She's just treating him like he deserves to be treated, like a brilliant kid with potential. We don't know that she's legitimate. We don't know her credentials or, she's a professor at Georgetown University. Rosa's voice hit a level that made Principal Harrison flinch. Her credentials are public record. What you mean is you don't want someone outside this school confirming what you refuse to believe. The room went silent. Finally, Principal Harrison spoke, her voice careful. The testing is in 4 weeks. If Marcus performs as you believe he will, we can discuss appropriate placement and enrichment. Until then, I'm asking, respectfully, that you limit contact with outside parties until we've completed our own evaluation. No, Rosa said flatly. Excuse me? I said no. You don't get to tell my grandson who he can learn from. You don't get to isolate him while you take your time deciding whether to believe him. She grabbed Marcus's hand. We're done here. And we'll be at Georgetown tomorrow, meeting with Dr. Martinez because someone needs to actually help this child. They walked out together, leaving Principal Harrison sitting at her desk with an expression somewhere between anger and concern. In the hallway, Marcus whispered, Grandma, you might get in trouble. Let them try, Rosa said grimly. Nobody talks to my grandson like that. Nobody? What neither Marcus nor his grandmother knew was that Principal Harrison was already on the phone before they'd left the building. She was calling the district superintendent, escalating the situation beyond the school level. Because if Georgetown University was getting involved, if a college professor was vouching for Marcus's abilities, then this was bigger than a middle school math teacher's concerns. This was about to become very public, and when the truth came out, as it was about to in spectacular fashion, there would be consequences for everyone who doubted Marcus Williams. Saturday morning, Marcus and his grandmother took 2 buses to reach Georgetown University's campus. Marcus had never been there before. The buildings were old and beautiful, covered in ivy, completely different from Jefferson Middle School's concrete brutalism. Dr. Martinez met them at the entrance to the mathematics building. In person, she was even more warm and energetic than she'd seemed at the library. You must be Mrs. Williams, she said, shaking Rosa's hand. Thank you so much for coming. And Marcus, good to see you again. She led them to her office, a cramped space overflowing with books and papers and coffee mugs in various states of fullness. Photos on the wall showed Dr. Martinez at conferences, receiving awards, teaching classes. First, Dr. Martinez said once they were seated, I want to show you something. She opened her laptop and pulled up a document. This is Marcus's solution to the research problem I gave him. It's been reviewed by 3 members of my research team, including one professor who specializes in differential geometry. All 3 agree it's correct, innovative, and demonstrates genuine mathematical insight at a level we rarely see even in graduate students. Rosa's hand flew to her mouth. Graduate students? Yes. Marcus approached a problem that had stumped my team for weeks and solved it in less than 4 days. Dr. Martinez turned to Marcus. Do you understand how remarkable that is? Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I saw a pattern. It wasn't that hard once I understood what you were asking. That's exactly what makes it remarkable. To you, it was just pattern recognition. To us, it was a month-long research roadblock. Doctor. Martinez smiled. Marcus, you have a gift, a genuine, extraordinary mathematical gift. Rosa was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. His teacher thinks he's a cheater, she said, voice thick. They're making him wait weeks for testing, treating him like he's done something wrong. Dr. Martinez's expression hardened. I know. Marcus told me, and I want to address that, which is why I invited you both here today. She pulled out some papers. I've taken the liberty of arranging for Marcus to take the AMC 12. That's the American Mathematics Competition for high school seniors, this coming Tuesday. It's a highly respected national exam, proctored under strict conditions, that will provide objective documentation of his abilities. High school seniors? Rosa asked. Yes. I'm also registering him for the competition I mentioned, the Georgetown Invitational Mathematics Tournament. It's next Saturday, 1 week from today. Both of these will provide the kind of institutional validation that should address your school's concerns. What if he doesn't do well? Marcus asked quietly. Dr. Martinez looked at him seriously. Then we learn something about where your knowledge has gaps and we work on filling them. But Marcus, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I've seen your work. I know what you're capable of. His teacher says his abilities don't fit the pattern, Rosa said. Says real mathematical talent doesn't develop this way. His teacher is wrong. And frankly, his teacher is revealing his own biases. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. Mrs. Williams, I've spent 20 years in mathematics education. I've seen talent emerge from every possible background. Rich kids, poor kids, kids with parents who are professors, kids with parents who never finished high school. The one constant. Passion and dedication. Marcus has both. She turned to Marcus. You know who else taught himself advanced mathematics from library books? Srinivasa Ramanujan. One of the greatest mathematical minds of the 20th century. He grew up in poverty in India, had almost no formal training, and made contributions to number theory that we're still exploring today. I'm not Ramanujan, Marcus said. Maybe not. But you are Marcus Williams, and that's pretty extraordinary on its own. Music shift. Hopeful building to triumphant, they spent the next hour discussing logistics. The AMC 12 would be administered at Georgetown under Dr. Martinez's supervision. The competition would be an all-day event with multiple rounds of problems. One more thing, Doctor. Martinez said as they were preparing to leave. I want to invite some colleagues to observe the competition, other mathematicians, some administrators from the university. Would that be all right? Why? Marcus asked. Because when you do well, and you will, I want there to be witnesses. I want it to be absolutely clear that your abilities are real, documented, and worthy of support. She paused. I also want your school to understand that they've made a serious error in judgment. Not for revenge, but so this doesn't happen to the next Marcus Williams who walks into their building. Rosa nodded slowly. Do it. Let them see what they refuse to believe. As they rode the bus home, Rosa held Marcus's hand tightly. Baby, she said, I need you to understand something. No matter what happens next week, whether you win this competition or not, whether you score high or low, I'm proud of you. Your mama would be proud of you. You hear me? Yes, ma'am. You've already proven yourself to me, to Dr. Martinez, to everyone who matters. Whatever happens next is just confirmation. Marcus nodded, throat tight. He wanted to believe her, wanted to feel confident about the competition, about the test, about everything that was coming. But mostly he just felt scared, because what if he failed? What if the pressure of performance made him freeze? What if Mr. Chen was right and his abilities evaporated under official scrutiny? What Marcus didn't know, what nobody could have predicted, was that the competition was going to be far more dramatic than anyone anticipated. Because Dr. Martinez hadn't just invited colleagues to observe. She'd invited the press. And she'd also sent a very specific invitation to Principal Harrison and Mr. Chen with a very clear message. Come watch Marcus Williams prove you wrong. The AMC 12 took place on Tuesday afternoon in a small classroom in Georgetown's mathematics building. Dr. Martinez proctored along with another professor. Marcus sat at a desk in the front row, pencil in hand, examination booklet in front of him. 25 questions, 75 minutes. Problems ranging from algebra to calculus to number theory. Marcus took a deep breath and began. The first few questions were straightforward, the kind of problems he could solve in his sleep. But as he progressed, they got harder, more complex, requiring not just knowledge but insight, creativity, the ability to see connections. This was what he'd been training for, whether he'd known it or not. All those mornings at his desk, all those Saturdays at the library, all those hours lost in the pure joy of mathematical discovery. His pencil moved across the page. Some problems took 30 seconds, some took 5 minutes. One problem, number 23, about infinite series, made him pause and think for almost 8 minutes before the solution clicked into place. When time was called, Marcus set down his pencil and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Dr. Martinez collected his exam with a smile. "How do you feel?" "Okay, I think." Some were hard. They're supposed to be hard. These are designed for high school seniors who have completed calculus. They scored the exam that evening. Dr. Martinez called Marcus at home at 8:47 p.m. "Marcus, I have your results." His heart was pounding. "How bad is it?" "Bad. Marcus, you got a 144 out of 150. That puts you in approximately the top 1% of all test takers nationwide. For context, you outscored 99% of high school seniors who have had years more instruction than you." Marcus sat down on his bed, dizzy. "Really? Really?" "Marcus, this is the objective proof your school demanded. You've demonstrated mathematical ability that's not just advanced for your age, it's advanced, period." After they hung up, Marcus told his grandmother, who cried and hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. Keisha cheered and did a little dance around the apartment. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt something like vindication, but the real test was still coming. The Georgetown Invitational Mathematics Tournament. Saturday, public, witnessed, the stage where everything would be settled. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that felt almost prophetic. Marcus woke at 5:30 out of habit, but instead of studying, he just sat at his desk and looked out the window at the city waking up. Today was the day. Everything he'd worked for, everything he'd been accused of, everything that had been doubted, it all came down to the next few hours. His grandmother made him a big breakfast. "Brain food," she insisted, loading his plate with eggs and toast and fruit. "You need energy." They took the bus to Georgetown together. Keisha came too, dressed in her best church outfit, excited to see her brother compete. As they approached the mathematics building, Marcus saw a crowd. More than a crowd. Cameras, reporters. A news van from the local station. "What the?" Rosa started. Dr. Martinez appeared at his side. "I may have mentioned to a few media contacts that something interesting was happening today," she said with a slight smile. "I hope you don't mind." Marcus's stomach twisted. "You invited the press. I invited witnesses." The press invited themselves once they heard the story. 12-year-old mathematical prodigy from Southeast D.C., doubted by his school. Proving his abilities at a prestigious university competition. She squeezed his shoulder. "Trust me, this is good." They entered the building. The competition was being held in a large lecture hall. 40 students total, mostly high school juniors and seniors from private schools and academic magnet programs. Expensive clothes, confident expressions. The kind of kids who'd been told they were special their entire lives. And then there was Marcus, 12 years old, third-row sneakers, glasses held together with tape. He could feel the stares. Hear the whispered questions. "Who's that kid? Is he really competing? He looks like he's in elementary school, doctor." Martinez led Marcus, Rosa, and Keisha to reserved seats in the front row of the observation area. The lecture hall was filling up with spectators, university faculty, parents of competitors, journalists, and Marcus's heart stopped. Principal Harrison had just walked in. And behind her, looking deeply uncomfortable, was Mr. Chen. Dr. Martinez had actually invited them, had actually made them come watch. The teacher's eyes found Marcus across the room. For a moment their gazes locked. Mr. Chen's expression was complex, anxiety, defensiveness, something that might have been guilt. Then he looked away. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced from the front of the hall. Professor James Whitney, the competition organizer, stood at the podium. Welcome to the Georgetown Invitational Mathematics Tournament. We have 40 exceptional young mathematicians competing today across 3 rounds of increasing difficulty. The top 3 scorers will receive scholarships and recognition. Let's begin. The first round was multiple choice, 20 questions in 40 minutes. Marcus sat at desk number 23, surrounded by students who towered over him and tried to focus. The proctor distributed the exams. You may begin. Now, Marcus opened his booklet and started reading. The problems were hard, genuinely challenging. Problems about probability, geometry, number theory, combinatorics. The kind of problems that required real mathematical thinking. Marcus lost himself in the work. Around him, other students chewed their pencils, crossed out answers, muttered under their breath. But Marcus was in that quiet space where only the math existed. When time was called, he'd completed all 20 problems. They had a 15-minute break while exams were scored. Marcus stood with his grandmother in the hallway, drinking water, trying not to throw up from nerves. "How'd you do?" Rosa asked. "I don't know, some were really hard." "You did your best." That's all that matters. But it wasn't, not really, because this wasn't just about doing his best. This was about proving that he deserved to be believed. Professor Whitney emerged from the scoring room. "Could all competitors please return to the lecture hall?" They filed back in. The room was tense. Parents leaned forward in their seats. The journalists had cameras ready. "Round 1 results," Professor Whitney announced. "These are the top 10 scorers who will advance to round 2. He began reading names. Students from elite private schools, academic magnet programs. Each name was met with applause, proud parents, confident smiles. And in first place with a perfect score of 20 out of 20, Marcus held his breath. "Marcus Williams, Jefferson Middle School." The room erupted. Not just applause, shock, gasps. People turning to look at the 12-year-old in the front row. Marcus felt like he was moving through water as he stood up. Dr. Martinez was beaming. His grandmother was crying. Keisha was bouncing in her seat, clapping wildly. And in the back row, Marcus saw Mr. Chen's face go absolutely white. But this was just round 1. There were 2 more rounds to go. And if Marcus thought the first round was hard, he had no idea what was coming. Round 2 was different, not multiple choice but free response. 5 problems in 90 minutes. Problems that required not just finding the answer but showing full work, proving solutions, demonstrating deep mathematical understanding. The 10 advancing students sat at desks spread across the front of the lecture hall, visible to all the spectators. A projector displayed each problem as it was revealed. Problem 1 appeared on the screen, a complex geometry problem involving circles and tangent lines. Marcus read it, saw the solution path immediately, and began to work. Around him, other students were drawing diagrams, testing approaches, working through the logic. Marcus's hand moved steadily across the page, each step following naturally from the last. 14 minutes later, he set down his pencil. Done. He glanced up and saw Dr. Martinez watching him with an expression of wonder, saw journalists scribbling notes, saw Mr. Chen staring at him with an expression that was hard to read. Problem 2, number theory, more complex. Marcus had to think harder about this one, testing different approaches before finding the right one. 23 minutes. Problem 3, calculus. A related rates problem that would have stumped most high school seniors. Marcus worked through it methodically, checking his work twice. 19 minutes. By the time problem 4 appeared, other students were starting to look stressed. One girl had her head in her hands. A boy near the front had given up on problem 3 and moved on, leaving it incomplete. But Marcus was in flow, that state where time disappears and there's only the math, only the problems. Only the pure logical beauty of solution after solution. Problem 4, combinatorics, 27 minutes, but he got it. Problem 5, a proof problem involving inequalities. This was the hardest yet. Marcus stared at it for 5 full minutes before seeing the insight. Then his pencil flew across the page, building the proof step by step. When time was called, he'd completed all 5 problems. The scoring took longer this time. They had to check the work, evaluate the proofs, verify the logic. 40 minutes of waiting while Marcus sat with his grandmother, too nervous to talk. Finally, Professor Whitney returned to the podium. Round 2 was significantly more challenging, he announced. The problems were designed to test not just computational ability, but mathematical creativity and rigor. Several of our competitors scored very well. One competitor, however, he paused, looking directly at Marcus. One competitor achieved something we've never seen in this tournament's 12-year history. A perfect score on all 5 free response problems with proofs that were not only correct but elegant. Marcus Williams! The room exploded. Actual cheers this time, journalists rushing forward. Camera flashes. Dr. Martinez was on her feet applauding. Rosa was openly weeping. Keisha was screaming, "That's my brother, that's my brother." And in the back, Principal Harrison was staring at Mr. Chen with an expression that promised a very difficult conversation later. Mr. Chen himself looked like he might be sick. His face had gone from white to gray. He was gripping the armrest of his chair, so tightly his knuckles were white. Because he was watching everything he'd believed, everything he'd assumed, everything he'd accused Marcus of being demolished in real time in front of witnesses. But there was still one round left. Round 3, the lightning round. Round 3 will be different, Professor Whitney explained. We'll display a problem on the screen. The first student to provide the correct answer wins the point. 5 problems total. The student with the most points wins the tournament. Our 3 top scorers from round 2 will compete. Marcus, a senior from St. Albans School named David, and a junior from Thomas Jefferson High School named Priya. They stood at 3 podiums at the front of the hall, each with a buzzer. The entire room was silent. Problem 1, Professor Whitney said, and a complex equation appeared on the screen. Marcus read it, saw it, understood it. His hand hit the buzzer before he'd consciously decided to move. Buzz. Marcus Williams. 42, Marcus said. Correct. 1 point. Problem 2, an integration problem. Priya buzzed in first but got it wrong. David took too long. Marcus buzzed in. Negative 1/3. Correct. 2 points. Problem 3 was probability. Marcus buzzed in so fast it was almost simultaneous with the problem appearing. 5/6. Correct. 3 points. By problem 4, David and Priya looked demoralized. They were competing against someone who wasn't just fast. He was operating on a different level entirely. Seeing solutions before others finished reading the problems. Marcus got problem 4, then problem 5, perfect score, total domination, undeniable proof. The lecture hall was silent for a long moment. Professor Whitney looked down at his score sheet, then up at the crowd, then at Marcus. Ladies and gentlemen, he said quietly, I've been running this competition for 12 years. I've seen brilliant students, truly brilliant. But I have never seen anything like what we just witnessed. He walked over to Marcus and held out his hand. Marcus shook it, still not quite believing what had just happened. Marcus Williams, a 12-year-old 7th grader from Jefferson Middle School, has just won the Georgetown Invitational Mathematics Tournament with a perfect score across all 3 rounds. This is unprecedented. This is extraordinary. This is... Professor Whitney paused, emotion clear in his voice. This is a privilege to witness. The room erupted into applause, standing ovation. Cheers, camera flashes. Dr. Martinez was crying now proud tears. Rosa had Keisha in her arms, both of them jumping up and down. And Marcus stood at the front of the lecture hall, overwhelmed, stunned, vindicated. Dr. Martinez came to the podium. I'd like to say something, if I may. The room quieted. 6 weeks ago, Marcus Williams walked into his 7th grade math class and solved a college-level differential equation on the board. His teacher accused him of cheating. His school demanded weeks of verification before they would acknowledge his abilities. They made him wait, made him prove himself again and again. Made him endure suspicion and doubt. Her voice hardened. This young man, this brilliant, dedicated, extraordinary young man, was treated like a fraud because his talent didn't fit expected patterns. Because he came from the wrong neighborhood. Because he didn't have the right credentials. Because the adults who should have supported him couldn't imagine that someone like him could be this gifted. She looked directly at Mr. Chen. Today, in front of journalists and university faculty and his peers, Marcus has proven beyond any shadow of doubt that his abilities are real. But he shouldn't have had to. He should have been believed the first time. He should have been celebrated, not interrogated. The room was silent. Mr. Chen had shrunk in his seat, looking like he wanted to disappear. Marcus, Doctor, Martinez said, turning to him. On behalf of Georgetown University, I'd like to offer you a full scholarship to our summer mathematics program. And I'd like to invite you to work with my research team as a junior collaborator, if you're interested. Marcus couldn't speak, could only nod, tears streaming down his face. Professor Whitney stepped forward again. I'd also like to announce that Marcus's performance today has earned him automatic qualification for the USA Mathematical Olympiad. At 12 years old, he'll be one of the youngest competitors in the program's history. More applause, more cameras, more evidence that would make it impossible for anyone to ever doubt him again. Finally, after the ceremony concluded and the formal photos were taken, and the journalists had gotten their interviews, Marcus found himself standing in the hallway outside the lecture hall. Principal Harrison approached him. Her expression was complex: shame, respect, regret. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I handled this wrong, very wrong. We should have believed you. We should have supported you. Instead, we doubted you at every turn." Marcus didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to tell her it was okay. Part of him wanted to tell her exactly how much damage her doubt had done. "Thank you," he finally said, because he was raised to be polite even when he didn't feel polite. Principal Harrison nodded. "We'll be reaching out to discuss how to properly support your education going forward. You deserve better than what we gave you." She walked away, and then Mr. Chen was standing there. The teacher who'd started this entire thing, who'd given Marcus that problem as a joke, who'd accused him of cheating, of lying, of performance. Mr. Chen looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past few hours. "Marcus," he said, his voice rough, I was wrong about everything. I let my assumptions blind me. I let my biases," his voice cracked. "I treated you terribly, and I'm sorry. It's not enough, but I'm sorry." Marcus looked at the man who'd made the last month of his life miserable, who'd questioned his integrity, his abilities, his worth. "Why?" Marcus asked quietly. "Why couldn't you just believe me?" Mr. Chen was silent for a long moment. "Because you didn't fit the narrative I'd built about what mathematical genius looks like. And instead of questioning my narrative, I questioned you. That was wrong. It was prejudiced. It was," he stopped, swallowing hard, "it was everything a teacher should never be." "Yeah," Marcus said. "It was." Mr. Chen nodded, accepting the judgment. "For whatever it's worth, watching you today, seeing what you can do, it's reminded me why I became a teacher, and shown me how far I've strayed from that purpose." He held out his hand. "I hope you'll continue to prove people like me wrong. The world needs more Marcus Williams." Marcus looked at the outstretched hand for a long moment. Then he shook it. Not forgiveness, not exactly, but acknowledgement, an ending. Mr. Chen walked away, and Marcus stood there, surrounded by people who believed in him, who'd witnessed his triumph, who'd seen the truth. 3 weeks later, Marcus sat in a different classroom. Not room 214 at Jefferson Middle School, but an advanced mathematics seminar at Georgetown University, sitting among graduate students who treated him as an equal. The school district had fast-tracked a special arrangement. Marcus would attend Jefferson for most of his classes. He was still 12, still needed 7th grade social studies and English and P.E., but 3 times a week. He'd take the bus to Georgetown for mathematics courses at his actual level. Dr. Martinez had become something like a mentor. She met with him weekly, guiding his studies, introducing him to other mathematicians, helping him navigate this new world he'd been thrust into. The media coverage had been intense. Local news, national news, articles about the boy genius who'd been doubted and then vindicated. His story had struck a nerve, resonating with anyone who'd ever been underestimated, anyone who'd been told they couldn't be what they were. But with the attention came opportunity. Scholarship offers from elite private schools, invitations to mathematics camps and programs, a book deal his grandmother was negotiating with a publishing house that wanted to tell his story. Marcus was still adjusting to all of it, still processing the fact that his life had fundamentally changed, that he was no longer invisible, no longer the quiet kid trying not to be noticed. At Jefferson, things were different now. Students treated him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Teachers approached him carefully, aware that the school's handling of his case had become a cautionary tale in educational circles. Mr. Chen had been placed on administrative leave, pending a district review. The investigation wasn't just about Marcus. It had uncovered a pattern of bias, of students from certain backgrounds being questioned more harshly, their abilities doubted more readily. The district was implementing new training, new protocols, new accountability. It wouldn't fix everything, wouldn't undo the damage, but it was something. Tyler, Jamie, and Destiny remained his core group. They treated him exactly the same as before, which Marcus appreciated more than any honor or award. At lunch, they still talked about basketball and homework, and the ongoing drama about who was dating whom. "So when you're a famous mathematician," Tyler said one day, "will you still hang out with us peasants?" "Obviously not," Marcus replied with a grin. "I'll be too busy doing mathematician stuff." "Like what?" "I don't know, solving equations, looking thoughtful, wearing tweed jackets." They all laughed, normal kid laughter. The kind that reminded Marcus that despite everything that had changed, some things remained the same. His grandmother still worked her 2 jobs, though Dr. Martinez was helping them explore scholarship opportunities that might ease the financial pressure. Keisha still slept on the other side of the curtain divider, though she now bragged to anyone who would listen that her brother was basically a genius. And Marcus still woke up at 5:30 a.m. to spend 30 minutes at his desk with the math. Because that hadn't been about proving anything to anyone. That had always been for him. The numbers still made sense when nothing else did. The problems still lit up his mind like fireworks. The math was still pure, logical, beautiful. Some things didn't change. On a Saturday afternoon 6 weeks after the competition, Marcus returned to the library where he'd first met Dr. Martinez. He found his usual table in the corner and spread out his materials. He was working on a new problem now, something Dr. Martinez's research team was exploring about prime number distribution. Graduate-level number theory that would have seemed impossible just months ago. But Marcus had learned something important. Impossible was just another word for not yet solved. He'd been working for about an hour when someone tapped his shoulder. He looked up to see a young girl, maybe 9 or 10, with glasses and a worn backpack. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "Are you Marcus Williams, the math kid from the news?" Marcus smiled. "Yeah, that's me. I saw you on TV. You were really cool." She hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. I'm really good at science. But my teacher says I should focus on other things because science is hard and maybe I'm not." She trailed off. "Not the right kind of person for science." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. He knew exactly what she meant, what she was too young to articulate, the boxes people tried to put you in, the limitations they imposed based on who you were rather than what you could do. "Can I tell you something?" he said gently. She nodded. "Being the right kind of person doesn't matter. What matters is whether you love it and whether you're willing to work hard. If you love science, don't let anyone tell you that you can't be a scientist, not your teacher, not anyone." "But what if they don't believe me?" Marcus thought about Mr. Chen, about Principal Harrison, about every moment of doubt and accusation he'd endured. "Then you prove them wrong," he said. "Not because you have to prove anything, but because you deserve to pursue what you love, and eventually the right people will see your talent and support you." The girl smiled. "Thanks," she said, and then she was gone, disappearing into the library stacks. Marcus returned to his problem, but his mind was elsewhere, thinking about that little girl. About how many other kids were being doubted right now, being told they didn't fit the pattern, being questioned instead of celebrated. He couldn't change the system alone, but he could be visible. Could be proof that talent emerged from everywhere, that genius didn't have a required background or prescribed path. He could be what he'd needed to see, someone like him succeeding. And maybe that would make it easier for the next kid, and the one after that, and the one after that, until the day when a black kid from Southeast DC. Solving differential equations wasn't treated as impossible, just expected. The truth is, Marcus's story shouldn't have been remarkable. A talented kid working hard and achieving success, that should be normal. Celebrated immediately, supported enthusiastically, nurtured without question. But we live in a world where talent is often measured not by ability, but by circumstances, where potential is recognized or ignored based on background, neighborhood, skin color. Where doesn't fit the pattern becomes an excuse for doubt rather than an opportunity for expanding our understanding of what patterns can look like. Marcus was lucky. Lucky that Dr. Martinez happened to walk past his table at the library. Lucky that he had a grandmother willing to fight for him. Lucky that his vindication happened publicly, undeniably, in a way that couldn't be dismissed or ignored. But how many other kids aren't lucky? How many brilliant minds are dismissed because their talent doesn't emerge from expected places? How many potential mathematicians, scientists, artists, writers are told they're not the right kind of person and internalize that message? The real villain of this story isn't Mr. Chen, not really. He's just a person who let unconscious biases shape his perceptions, who confused familiar patterns with universal truth. The real villain is a system that makes such biases reasonable, that treats suspicion as prudent when directed at certain students, that demands more proof from some kids than others. And the real heroes aren't just Marcus or Dr. Martinez. They're everyone who chooses to believe in potential before demanding credentials. Everyone who sees talent and nurtures it rather than questioning it. Everyone who recognizes that genius can wear worn sneakers and live in a third-floor walk-up apartment and still be genuine. Marcus's story has a happy ending because he got the support he needed eventually. But the stories that should haunt us are the ones we'll never hear. The kids whose gifts went unrecognized, whose talents were dismissed, who learned to make themselves smaller because being brilliant came with too many complications. We can't fix everything, can't eliminate all bias, can't ensure every talented kid gets support, but we can start by examining our own assumptions. By asking ourselves whose potential we're quick to recognize and whose we question. By being aware of the patterns we expect and the biases those patterns might hide. Because the next Marcus Williams might not get a second chance, might not have a Dr. Martinez walk past their library table, might give up rather than endure months of doubt. And that would be a loss for all of us. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that talent emerges from everywhere and deserves to be celebrated everywhere, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe. These are the stories that need to be told. Stories of resilience, of vindication, of people refusing to be limited by others' expectations. Because every time we share these stories, we create a little more space for the next kid who doesn't fit the expected pattern. We normalize excellence from unexpected places. We challenge the biases that limit potential. But this story of a 12-year-old mathematician proving his doubters wrong, this moment of academic vindication in a Georgetown lecture hall, that's just the beginning. Because what happened when a quiet honors student walked into her father's company board meeting after being excluded from the family business for years? Well, that's a story that makes Marcus's vindication look tame. Until next time.